Welcome to another edition of the Business and Personal Podcast, where we bring you closer to those people you do business with. And we're so excited to be joined by Wafaa. Wait, did I pronounce that right?
That is correct.
All
Yes.
right. Practice makes perfect. Glad we got that in before the recording. So, Wafaa is the founder of Sphinx Academy, starting her second decade now of running the school. It's an amazing story of what led her to opening the school, and I look forward to her sharing that with you. But first of all, like a crazy person on the last day of school, you decided to record this. So, thanks for taking the time to do it.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So yeah, just tell us, this is a business and personal podcast. So just tell us a little bit about your personal story and how you had a career path change that led you to Sphinx Academy.
I have like a very complex background. I graduated from medical school. I went from there to a psychology degree. I went from there to, um, you know, uh, immigrating to the United States. I was heading for a psychiatry residency, and then kind of got really interested in education because my son was diagnosed with ADHD, but also identified as gifted, which started the winding road of just trying to find the right setup for somebody who is high ability, but also still requires a lot of support. And gosh, we tried so many models over maybe 2 or 3 states. I ended up going back to school, getting a special ed degree. I got trained in Montessori education. I started visiting other models, and I was at some point I was homeschooling Yusuf. I think he was in 7th grade at the time. This took years, obviously, that I just said in like a few minutes. Um, and I was curious, like, what would be the right environment? What would be the perfect school for you? And he said, I'd like what we do here at home, but in school. And I don't know, it started something in my head, and I started making phone calls. I don't think, um, 6 months before I started Sphinx, I don't think I really thought it would happen. um, I I started making phone calls and just taking one step in front of, one in front of the other. Um, I remember thinking, I'll never be able to find a space that we can afford, and space just came to be. It's still the space that we're in. It was the first suite. Now we have three suites that are connected, but it was the first suite. And I remember I almost was about ready to give up until this landlord gave me the opportunity to, he basically said, you know, pay whatever you can, and if it succeeds, it succeeds, and if it doesn't, you're off the hook. And I was like, all right, somebody up there wants this to happen. And that was in 2013.
Yeah, you
So,
never try to fight the higher powers, right? If they're
yeah.
pushing you in the direction, you just
Yes.
take the
And
wheel and
people,
I'm following the lead, right?
absolutely. And I think people just, you know, it's almost like it's just, I guess a lot of things happen out of necessity, right? It's just, but it became right now, okay, so this is 10 years later. My son has graduated SCAD. He, graduated Sphinx 5 years ago. He graduated SCAD. My other two kids graduated from here. My youngest just got her associates. And um, and now it's for me. It's not for my kid anymore. It is the right place for me, and I'm so glad. And I really do think it's making a difference. One of the kids, in a particularly crazy day, asked me, do you ever regret doing this? And I said, not for a single second.
Well,
Yeah, does get crazy. I'll tell you that much.
and anybody watching the YouTube version can see the smile on your face and how much clearly you love running the school. Maybe it's because it's the last day. Maybe that's why you're so happy.
I,
But hey, following your passions is an undefeated business plan. You can never go wrong with that. But no
yes.
matter what your business plan was, halfway through your existence, where you're at now, this pandemic hits to make things a little bit more difficult. How did you navigate through that? And were there things that helped you out in the long run going through that?
I think that we managed it definitely. Like, it's funny because during the pandemic, so many people decided to homeschool. They hated the virtual aspects of things. I think we kind of came up with a structure. What we did was we created a Zoom environment where there were classrooms and then there were social rooms and there were what we call self-directed learning rooms. So students can still have the one-on-one with the teachers and they still have like somewhat classes and so basically they were like in school but virtually. And we had like hat days and pet days, and we met each other's pets, and we did and we sent packets because we're a small school. We had like maybe 25 kids at the time. We sent packets, so we did like together we did labs, and I still remember times we had a yearbook that year of all the pictures from the Zoom meetings where we wore silly hats and we met our pets, and we had guests. Actually, one of our guests was, I don't know if you follow TikTok, but there's Under the Desk News on TikTok is a like followed by millions, and they came on and met with us, and the students got to ask them questions. We had professors from the University of Kentucky come over, talk about archaeology, stuff that honestly we probably wouldn't have been able to do. And so I feel like with all, would I want it to happen again? Certainly not. No, thank you. But I feel like we made the best of it. And we had actually kind of a gush of enrollment, especially for older students who really didn't feel like they were getting anything out of the big setting when they turned virtual. So, so we had an interesting change of demographic as well. But yeah, we were still very, very happy to get back to on-site school. It was a difficult time. It's so different. But I think we made the best out of it. We tried our best to stay as a community. We tried not to make it so that students just came in for class and then just were on their own. And we tried to kind of maintain as much of the services as we give on site as it was online, but we're happy to be back.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, right? It's like, I think a lot of people would be like that. No way in the world would I ever want to go through that again. But I think all of us can find at least some things that came out of that made us better in the long run. So that's all you can do. You can't control certain things, right?
Absolutely.
So you use the term twice exceptional for your son, and how you recognize that he needed a different sort of learning environment. So the parents that stumbled across this, that are still listening to this point, maybe think that their child could use your school. So just explain what twice exceptional means, and maybe some things parents should be looking for to if your school would be the best fit for them.
And honestly, over the years, we've kind of found that neurodiversity in general, twice exceptionality, is specifically. So basically, you have somebody who has a non-typical brain, ADHD, maybe they're on the spectrum. Maybe they have dyslexia or dysgraphia, something that it makes it difficult for them to grasp or to make the best out of materials delivered in a traditional way. But they absolutely have not just the average ability, but high ability to understand and synthesize all that information. It's just that they need it delivered differently. And I was actually just doing research recently, and it used to be that people thought that maybe 5% of the population is neurodivergent. Now it's like 15 to 20%, and that's only the identified ones. And generally, you only identify that population if they're having a lot of trouble. But the tricky part about being twice exceptional is that your high ability sometimes masks whatever trouble you're having. And so instead of working at your potential, you might be working at an average. And so completely going under the radar. Um, and so it's kind of tricky. But all in all, is the idea of being in a situation where you're kind of between two worlds. There are gifted schools that are incredibly, high pressure, high expectations, not as much flexibility. And then there are special education schools who give a lot of flexibility and a lot of support, but a lot of times that's at the expense of being challenged. And usually twice exceptional students and neurodivergent students are somewhere in the middle. They don't do well in these. And when they go to a traditional classroom, they're usually just, my least favorite word, doing fine. But they're not, a lot of times they're just not thriving. Maybe they're not happy. They don't look forward to school. And sometimes even they would go to the point where they just don't see the point, and sometimes their grade starts plummeting, especially when they reach 9th and 10th grade. So I don't know, I went on a runaround here, but like a lot of people will say, I think my kid is capable of more than that, but he's, just having trouble with focus, or he's having trouble with, reading. It takes him a lot to read. But he's just like so capable and so smart and all of these things. And our model kind of addresses all of these discrepancies. So you'll find some of our kids who have, my best example is, we had several kids like this who would barely get C's and D's in middle school, and then they have dyslexia, or they have severe dyslexia or dysgraphia. Dyslexia is basically trouble reading, needing maybe some technological help. Dysgraphia is trouble writing or expressing yourself in writing. And so the ability just to be able to use audiobooks and the ability to do speech to text or text to speech can make all the difference. And we have a student who ended up had dysgraphia and dyslexia, and ended up in a creative writing program that only accepted 6% of the applicants. And so it's not just a place that will kind of, we hope, or, that's what we strive for. It's not just a place so that you can be accommodated, but a place we hope that will also like address your strengths and help you reach your potential into some places maybe that you wouldn't have thought you could reach. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think that paints a pretty clear picture. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what school is all about, is bringing out the best in every kid, and every kid has different needs. So that's why it's great to have the alternate learning environments like this. So yeah, I think you hit on some points that any parent at home probably could relate to, for sure. And recently you were able to find out, just from visiting in Washington, D.C. and seeing some of the other schools similar to yours, how you're actually kind of on the cutting edge and on the forefront of this frontier here.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, it was also very nice to see how, like, the different experiences and the different, we definitely want to have a community, a network, because every micro school is going to be a little different. So a micro school, the definition of a micro school is also very vague. It's basically a school that's like, it's much smaller than what you would expect, because some people will say small schools and they'll be thinking 400, because there are schools that go up to 2,000 or 2,500. But micro schools usually are below 60. The different models are there, but the smaller group, the idea of the mentorship, and that's the other thing that we've kind of been discussing is, it is a place where twice exceptional students definitely thrive. But it also became kind of, especially the last 2 or 3 years, where we started getting people who really like this model for itself, not necessarily because they're having trouble or because they were struggling in the traditional or a general setting. It's more because they feel like they have more options or more opportunities to explore. And I think the thing that really fascinated me is one thing that I probably didn't think about before, because you kind of think about, okay, individual students, you're doing better, you're doing better, you're doing better, or this works for you. But it's the communication between the different types of students and working together and being able to team up with people you normally wouldn't have teamed up with, and to be able to understand people who think differently. And so I feel like long term, that's going to be essential. I feel like with AI and with the future that we're looking at, I feel like it's essential that people are able to work together as a team that have different ways of looking at things. Neurodivergent kids, neurotypical kids, twice exceptional kids, all of these need to be able to work together as a team. And so I feel like our environment helps a lot with that as well.
And while you're on the forefront of things, you can't stand pat either. So as you get into going to your next decade here, you got to continue to evolve and continue to add things. So as we close, just give our listeners an idea of the new things you've added in the last year to continue to make Sphinx Academy better.
So the biggest thing I think is a partnership with several partnerships with other programs. And we have the Kentucky River Field program that's just starting this year. That is it's more than 100 acres with the Kentucky River going through it. And our kids are going there and experiencing sustainability and environmental science and all of that. It's stuff that's hard to do in an urban setting. And so that's a really wonderful addition that we're kind of really proud of. And the other thing is we're adding a lot of technical courses and associate degrees through our partnership with Bluegrass Blue Shield. Sorry, that's an insurance company. BCTC, Bluegrass Technical Institute College. And they take courses there. And we actually, this year, we had kids take over, I want to say over 70 courses, and they had mostly A's and a few B's and just like 3 C's. And so all of these, just adding more opportunities for the kids as we move forward, so that, they continue exploring what they want to do after they graduate. So
how many more decades you think you have in you?
I'll tell you, I maybe another day. I feel really tired today. I hope that I always tell people I'd like to be here when I'm 70. So,
awesome.
Maybe, maybe 2 more.
Well, hey, just keep bringing the passion like that. You'll know when you're not feeling the passion for it anymore, you'll know it's the time, but it doesn't look like you're anywhere close to slowing down.
No, we're really excited. Yes.
So Wafaa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to bother pronouncing your last name. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. You guys can try to pronounce it if you want. But yeah, thanks again so much for joining us. Love getting this information out there. So for the parents, guarantee anybody that's still listening at this point is very interested in school. So how can they get in touch with you?
Our best is our website, sphinxacademy.org, SPHINX academy.org. And we are on Facebook. If you'd like to follow us, we, lots of pictures and activities and such. So, and then you could email us. Our email and our phone number is going to be on the website.
Awesome. And all that information's on the screen for the YouTube followers. If you're on the audio version, you can go over to the YouTube version, or in the show notes, I'll have a link to the Sphinx Academy website. We will not make it hard to get a hold of Wafaa. So again, thanks so much. Congrats on another great school year, and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you so much.